Welcome to my first stream, everybody. I think it's working. I'm going to verify on the other tab just to make sure. But if you're joining me in the chat, be sure to wave hello with your favorite emoji and also let me know where you're watching from. I'm in my studio in Brooklyn, New York. It's a beautiful sunny day here. And today I want to go over some news, what's been going on in my life and work, and also some milestones that my channel has gone through in this last month. And then I'll wrap up by doing some upcoming prototypes and progress on some projects that are to come. So feel free to ask questions throughout the stream in the chat, and I will try to answer them as we go along. Okay, great. So first up in news, something that I've been working on that you might not see on my channel, or I mean, I'm promoting it on social, but not on my YouTube channel. I've been writing some lessons for Tinkercad circuits. So if you remember this circuits.io website, from a while back was folded into some Autodesk products and shuffled around a little bit. And last May ended up inside the Tinkercad editor, which is a great place for it to be. Now you can edit 3D models and then swap over to simulating circuits. And there's a full Arduino simulator in there. So you can run code and like test out ideas. And it's a really fun platform. So I've been helping them flesh out their learning content underneath that same Autodesk umbrella, Instructables and Tinkercad and all those other products. So hello from Ireland. Hi, Brian. Oh, you managed to make it. I promised I would help you with your IKEA furniture if I lived closer. It's such a joy for me to put together IKEA furniture because it's so simple. The instructions and the tools come with it, right? I feel like a superhero if you have a screwdriver. Anyway, so I've been writing these beginner Arduino lessons for Tinkercad circuits, and I put a link in the description. But you can also find them on the Circuits Instructables account. And there's a blog post on the Tinkercad blog all about them. And I just think it's really fun because after writing this really popular class on Instructables for Arduino at instructables.com/classes, it goes through all of the basics with the hardware. But if I get a lot of comments that are like, oh, well, I can't afford an Arduino board, or like, where can I even buy one of those? And so what's cool about Tinkercad circuits is that you can simulate many different common parts, including the Arduino board itself. So if you don't have the board, you can still learn the basic concepts. And that's the idea behind the lessons I'm making. So more and more will come out as the weeks go on. So that's exciting news in the land of content. It's hopefully really evergreen content that people will be learning from for some time to come. And that's kind of my favorite type of content to write. So I'm on my jam at work these days, if you're curious what I'm up to. And of course, publishing Instructables for all of the projects that I release here on my YouTube channel. Yay, from India, from all over the place, from New Jersey. Oh yeah, that's right. Sharon lives just across the river. Welcome, Sharon. So the other piece of news is that in the circuits vein is that on the 30th of April, which is a week from next Monday, I'll be participating in an Autodesk teachers webinar around using circuits in the classroom. There'll be these really cool wearables projects that'll be showcased by Rosie and Nisha from New View, who worked with a class full of youngsters, students, to create really cool wearables projects. And then I'm going to do a demo about Tinkercad circuits that sort of shows off how you can simulate some of the types of circuits they were working with. So that's really cool. I've also put a link to the registration for that free webinar in the description. So if you're an educator and you want to learn how to use Tinkercad circuits in your classroom or just get inspired, that's a good place. And it'll be live streamed. I think it's at 6:30 Eastern time on Monday the 30th. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Personal projects, I have the plywood storage wall project is still ongoing. There's 2 videos on it about my channel so far. One is kind of like creating the plans and the cut list, and the second one is installing the majority of the shelves and the doors. We're still missing one set of hinges that were on back order, so I've paused the videos about that project until the hinge comes in, but we just have a couple of more things to wrap up that project. So far, though, it's been really helpful in, you know, storing all the stuff. We built it to store, and which in some ways makes us lose a little bit of motivation to push it that final 15% or something, because if we can use it as storage, then like, what's the incentive to work on it for like several more weekends? Like, it's easy to prioritize other things. So it's coming along though, and the doors will get painted. We do have door handles for the doors, and yeah, maybe not next weekend, but the weekend after we'll work on it some more. It's been a fun project though, and I was definitely inspired by Lynn from Darbin Orver channels, plywood shelving unit, as well as lots of others like Dave Picciuto and champions of pocket holes, because I definitely have been using the pocket hole jig a ton to make this plywood storage unit. And if you don't know what that's all about, you can check out the videos. Oh, I guess there's 3 videos if you count the 3D printed adapter to go from the pocket hole jig to my shop vac. Okay, let's see. In other news this month, and by the way, let me know if you prefer this live stream format to my usual monthly studio vlog where I update you on what's going on project-wise. I figured this is more laid back, relaxed, and also allows for more interaction in case you guys have questions. This month I published this LED candy video, which is LED gummy candies, which are, it's like a reboot from a project I did in 2013, where I made a mold out of 10mm LEDs and then out of silicone and then cast gummy stuff in there. This time around, I also added some vitamin B2 to the gummy candy recipe so that the LED candies would glow under black light. And additionally went a little wackadoodle and attached some actual surface mount LEDs to the 3D printed toothpick things that I was using as the legs for the LED candies, and got a couple of them to actually light up. I was concerned that the gummy recipe would still be too conductive to allow, because it's surrounding, I worried I would have to epoxy in the LEDs, but they worked just fine. So hello from Israel, hello. So what time is it there? Not as late as it is in Australia, obviously. So that's a fun project if you haven't caught it yet. There's a recipe for, and I mean, you can make gummies that glow under black light with this recipe in any shape. But I thought, I really remember missing the opportunity of I should have made these candies glow when I made them the first time, but it was a little bit too late. And I have been meaning to get around to that for some time. But it's a fun project. And then other than that, I got a new phone this month, which is a big deal for me because it's that's like a once every 3-year event for me. It's the Pixel 2, and I made a video about what apps I kept in the transition. I started the phone fresh and installed whatever apps I think I used the most and went through them in a video describing which ones are my favorite and why. I live in a big city, so I have some I don't know, pretty specific apps, like the MTA bus time app, for example, that tells you in real time where the bus is. I never used to ride the bus before Google Maps had transit directions and the phones had GPS, because even with a candy bar Nokia, which is what my first cell phone was here in New York City, what if you missed the road signs? The bus was really scary, and I was worried I was going to get off at the wrong place or stay on too long. But GPS, Google Transit directions, and then the bus time app make it just I don't even have to leave my house because I know that the bus isn't going to be here for another 5 minutes. It's really cool. So if you want to check out what apps I like or hear my thoughts about my old phone, which is the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, you can click over to that video about my favorite Android apps and what's on my Pixel 2. I don't feel it's fair to review the Pixel 2 yet because I haven't had it for long enough, right? I don't feel there's a million reviews of tech stuff. I find it more valuable to reflect on my experience of having the same phone for 3 years and what I wanted to improve about that interaction than it is to just review the brand new thing. Because battery life, if you don't have a good charge management circuit, anything with a li-poly battery in it is going to start to decline in quality once the battery stops being able to hold as much charge. So that kind of thing for a device you use every day. I'm not saying that happened to my Samsung. I had 2 batteries for it, but just in general with li-poly things, I think the review after having it for a year is way more valuable than a review after having it for just a few months. Are buses that unreliable over there? I wouldn't say they're that unreliable. It's just you don't know how long you're going to be standing outside waiting in the weather for the bus. And the buses do get backed up in traffic. And sometimes 3 will come at once and after none of them coming for a while. And so since I have a bus stop right out front, I can use the app to know when it's a good time to leave my house so that I don't end up standing outside in the rain. For some reason, waiting for the bus is an open system and you just wait on the curb. I get a lot more impatient than in the subway. In the subway, you swipe your card and then you're in the system. And if you want to leave, you have to A, climb stairs, which is not my favorite. and B, you have to like forfeit the money you paid for the fare. So the bus is like, I get more irritated by waiting too long for the bus. And it's true that it like doesn't usually come at the exact time that the little schedule says it's going to, you know. A friend, or not a friend, a colleague of mine from the Free Art and Technology Lab actually worked on that bus time project, putting all of the like transponders in the buses and stuff during its experimental phase. And it's a really big project, and it's super cool, and it's really helpful. Yeah, the subway is amazing, Brian. It's true, the subway. But the thing about the bus is that it's a little bit closer to my house, and it also involves way fewer stairs, which is a concern of mine, like how many stairs I have to do while I'm out because of my knee issues. Yuck, yuck. All right, so then next up in content I've made this month since last we chatted in such an informal fashion is my huge collaboration with Alex French Guy Cooking on our Bluetooth knife sharpening helper project. We made this circuit, mine's inside a little 3D printed case that has 2 magnets and a Bluetooth microcontroller and a 9-DOF absolute orientation sensor, and it pairs with your phone and it tells you the angle of your knife while you're sharpening it. Well, Homeboy is not only super sweet, thanks Alex, what a great fun collab to work on with you, but also like Homeboy's got 500,000 subscribers, and so in one weekend I got 1,000 subscribers, and already I guess these days I'm getting like 600 or so new subscribers a month, and I got 3,000 this month, so or in the last 28 days or whatever. So like that's amazing, huge growth for my channel. And I really I value my new subscribers, and I hope to keep them around by publishing content regularly and trying to do fun things like this live stream. Oh, hi, Chris. So that was an awesome experience, not only to collaborate with somebody across the pond, so to speak, and also across genres. Like I love cooking and food, but since like microcontroller education is like one of my most marketable skills, it's just like I can't stand on my feet all day long. I guess culinary stuff has never been a viable career path for me. I really like cooking. Grew up like going to the grocery store with my dad and teaching me knife skills and all that stuff. So I like the idea of having sharp knives. It's just, and the idea of, I feel like his audience has this similar curiosity to mine, no matter what the subject is. And so that's why it's a really exciting collab to work on. And if you haven't checked it out yet, there should be a link in a card, and also for prominent on my channel page too. I know that the project is kind of over-engineered, but my idea here was that because you don't need Bluetooth, but Alex was excited about the idea of developing an app that could help you sharpen your knife, which is a cool idea. So if you wanted to do it just with the 9-DOF sensor, you could build in some visual feedback on the board itself with some LEDs or like a buzzer, although piezos to me sound like hell crickets. So I don't know. The idea, I guess, for not being so mad about over engineering it is that like once you get the muscle memory for how the angle to sharpen the knives at, you might not need it anymore, and then you can take it apart and use the expensive components for your next microcontroller project or all of that. Hi, Bob. Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to answer any questions about that on this stream or any other stream, really. But thanks for asking. Okay, so also, there's another huge there's another huge event in growth in my channel this month, and that was this really fun shout out from Bob Claggett to I Like to Make Stuff. Thanks, Bob. We spoke on a panel together at Maker Faire last fall, and he was just the sweetest guy and so nice, and you never know when somebody doesn't have their subscriptions listed publicly, like you can't tell who's subscribed to you. And so like, you don't know who's paying attention to your videos necessarily, but I know, I guess I know now that Bob shoots on a GH5, which I also shoot on. I've been a big fan of the GH3, the GH4 and the GH5. And he did this camera stabilizer project or like camera holder thing. And he needed to extend the shutter capability out to the handle using a prefab GH5 remote. And I happened to do this project where I made a foot pedal shutter switch for my GH5 so I could do tabletop photography. And so he gave my channel a shout out like the best kind of shout out, like go watch Becky's video. And it's so nice. And I was so flattered. And I definitely got a lot of traffic from it. And it makes me feel really good. I felt like I needed a win this month and I got 2. Okay. So that felt great. And I just hope I can ride that feeling for several more months. I do have some proto collabs in the works that are pretty exciting. So make sure to keep an eye out for those. Okay, so also, let's see, for a milestone, it's the 10th anniversary of my very first published like podcast tutorial for Craft Magazine. So I started blogging for them for Make and Craft right when I graduated from college in 2007. And pretty soon thereafter started writing original content. And my very first piece of original packaged original content was this was a sweater. It was a black cardigan with the back panel was intarsia knit with a skeleton, kind of like those t-shirts with the rib cage on them. It was like a sweater with a rib cage on it, but knit into the actual pattern. And the video tutorial was 2 parts. It was a pattern making in Photoshop. So I started with like a illustration, a copyright-free illustration of a skeleton, and then morphed it and pixelated it and posterized it into a pattern suitable for knitting. And then the second video was the method by which I knit the 2-color panel in the back. I mean, it's pretty terrible. I posted it. I posted the link on my Twitter, and I also posted it for my Patreon subscribers. So if you want to watch it, it's up. We published it on Blip TV originally, which is no longer a live site. So I figured I would put it up as unlisted on my channel in case people wanted to check it out. It's pretty bad. So if you want to feel good about your burgeoning tutorial skills, watch Becky Stern's first YouTube tutorial. Thanks, Stephen. That's nice. Programmable stitching machine, huh? Oh, my knitting machine. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, nice. That's also an old project. That's like, yeah, late Make Magazine phase. Cool. Nice to see you here. Welcome. So 10 years. That sweater actually, oddly enough, was lost in a suitcase. I came back from Maker Faire with my green rollerboard, direct flight at the time from San Francisco to Phoenix, where I was going to grad school. And it had the first edition Maker's notebooks in it, like 10 or 20 of them, because I was going to give them away to people. And also some other, my Thingamagoop, you know, that little like synthesizer robot was in there. And also some other cool stuff I got. So when you lose a suitcase and they're like, what was in your suitcase? Please detail it so we can find it for you. It was a totally findable suitcase that was never found. So it leads me to believe that it was stolen. The Phoenix airport, man, the way it's oriented, like the carousels are right next to the travel lanes. It's pretty easy to steal suitcases. So that sweater was lost in that suitcase. And so like this video and photos are like the only, and the PDF knitting pattern are like the only evidence I have that this thing ever existed. And so in that way, I'm glad I documented it, but also sad to not have that sweater that I spent a long time on. You know, when you lose a suitcase, they ask you to submit receipts for everything in it that was over, I don't know, $100 or something. So I asked my mom if she had any receipts for expensive yarn, because we're both knitters. I was like, I know you must have bought some yarn recently. Like, do you have any of the receipts? Because how am I supposed to get reimbursed for this like one-of-a-kind sweater? Have you ever had anything lost in luggage? At the very last minute, I decided to not put my lily pad embroidery inside it. Crazy. Do you use bamboo, plastic, or metal knitting needles? Personally, bamboo is my favorite. I have all different kinds, but I have a lot. Most of my collection is hand-me-downs from my mom, and they're metal. They're hollow metal knitting needles, and I think they were hard to learn on. I think learning on wooden knitting, like bamboo or other wooden knitting needles or plastic is the way to go, because it's a lot stickier and the stitches don't fall off. But once you learn the basics, and I'm speaking as a continental knitter, I don't know if this is true for English, you can really fly on the metal needles. Just like I can knit really, really, really fast. And I like knitting fast, so I prefer metal needles. But you know what's also fun is the carbon fiber needles. I have some carbon fiber needles that have metal tips, And those are, they're very light. They're lighter than the metal needles, but they have the same slipperiness because they're like polished epoxy over carbon fiber. So there's my thoughts on knitting needles. I'm an equal opportunity knitting needle enthusiast. I'm not a snob. Like whatever gets you knitting is really, and like I'm also a matter of personal preference, you know. Thanks for the question. Okay, so we'll move. Could you follow your own tutorial now? Oh, sure. Well, I mean, yeah, because I made the project. I don't have amnesia about how I made the sweater, and but could someone else follow my tutorial? It's definitely not as good as my like Instructables knitting class that I know for a fact has brought hundreds of people at least through the basics and on their way into like reading their own patterns and stuff. So it's definitely not a beginner's knitting project. But then again, like beginner tutorials are some of the hardest tutorials to write. So if you're just starting out in writing tutorials, like maybe the basics aren't where you should start. Maybe you should start with a more intermediate or advanced topic. That way, like people who are trying to follow your guide will know to tread with caution, or like they're not expecting it to hold their hand the entire way through, or, you know, like, so the medium and the message need to at least be close to each other on the spectrum, I think. That's my pro tip. How's my bike? Oh, my motorcycle, Edward, it's a sore point. My motorcycle is down right now, which means it's not running. The last time it ran was in September when I broke down on the BQE right behind some police officers who in stop and go traffic. That's why I broke down, because my bike overheated. And started like yelling at me over the loudspeaker, like, "That's not a great place to stop, miss." I had to push my bike off the BQE. And then I changed the spark plug. I managed to get like within 2 blocks of home. And it's been just like pushed across the street ever since for street cleaning parking regulations. And the problem is that I don't have a like reliable mechanic at this time. And it's been frustrating trying to like keep up with changing priorities of the various vintage Honda mechanics that are in the New York City area. So if you can recommend somebody in the New York City area, and I would go into Connecticut, upstate, and into New Jersey to get somebody reliable who would like to work on my bike. The problem is that it needs a new head. There was a problem where the cam chain got really slack in its previous life, or maybe I did this, and gouged out a little bit of the metal on the head, and then it was honed down, but it wasn't like machined down. And so like that gasket fails, like it starts burping, fuel mixes with my oil, and it's like been wasting spark plugs. So that's how my bike is doing. But I do, you know, it's springtime, so the weather's nice. And whenever you see a bike, you're like, oh man, I want to ride. I do live like very close to the Vespa dealership. And so they do service. So what I was thinking is I might need a taste of the opposite end of the spectrum and get a scooter. Although a scooter is not like it's not my most favorite idea to get a scooter, but the idea that I could get it serviced really close by from a reliable garage that's in business 100% of the time is really appealing to me. And they do have used stock. So I don't know. And then I'm thinking like, do I keep my bike and wait on the mechanic situation and get a Vespa, or do I sell my vintage bike, which I love so much, obviously, and has a lot of my own personality in it by now. But yeah, I don't know. And my boyfriend also rides, and he had 2 bikes stolen last summer. So like, I noticed that the scooters don't, like, how do you know if bikes get stolen? Like I see the same scooters around my neighborhood. So like that sort of proves that they don't get stolen. Whereas like he had a Honda Grom, which is like this, like kids like to do stunts on these bikes. So if you steal them, I guess they're like popular with a less savory crowd than the vintage bikes or the scooters, I guess. So, and like there aren't any free spots, even if I could afford it, there aren't any free spots at the garage that's nearby my house for parking the motorcycle. So it's definitely a parking outside situation. I know, aren't you sorry you asked? Did you say TSA has thrown out a bit too much of your stuff? Oh, yeah, I don't like flying either, Sharon, but I've never had TSA give me a problem with my knitting needles, and my mom either, and she knits like crazy on the plane. GPS tracking and ignition disabled via cellular. What if you... Via cellular. Okay, yeah, cellular is the key there if you want to track a motorcycle. That's the problem, though. GPS, like once they put it inside the van and it doesn't have a clear signal to the sky, like GPS is worthless. And they put it inside a warehouse. And then, but ignition disable, I mean, they just take it apart, like then, you know what I mean? like just take the bike apart. I don't know. Would a scooter be easier or harder on the knees? Probably about the same. Yeah, because the only thing that's hard about on the knees in riding the motorcycle is like balancing at a stop. And if I get pushed while I'm balancing at a stop, I could dislocate my knee and then fall. So maybe the scooter is easier because if I were to fall, then there's nothing in the knee area so that I wouldn't get like squished by the bike. But in general, I just need the standover height to be low enough that I'm not like wobbly on my toes. And that's my only concern with and I shouldn't have a huge bike, obviously. Like I was looking at that brand new Yamaha 900 or something, this brand new Yamaha Scrambler bike, and it looks gorgeous. I saw one in San Francisco the last time I was there. It's just too much bike for me. 900 cc's. It's too high up. It's too heavy for my knees. Yeah. Is the mug I'm drinking of heat reactive? No, it's just splatter painted or it's like glazed. It's just a gradient glaze. Ombre glaze. It's in my YouTube mug. I'm on theme today with my YouTube mug. Hello from Russia. Hi. I really want a trike, but it's a pain to ride in London. Like a motorized trike, you would look badass on one of those, Charles. Like the Harley. I saw one on Coney Island yesterday, like this badass Harley trike with like the leather tassels on the handlebars. What's the British equivalent of the Harley Davidson trike? Greetings. Hello everyone. Okay, so you guys want to see what I'm up to next or what I have planned? I'm trying to do a project for next week that's not really, and I know that I'm like excited to talk about the progress because there isn't much. And I'm frustrated, but hey, maybe you guys have some ideas. I've been trying to 3D print with needle felting. So I have these little prints with like a little lattice shaped dome on top. And then I've been using a felting needle to like apply fiber to the inside and the outside of the lattice structure in the hopes that I could use it for light diffusion. And it's just, I'm having to put too much fiber in order so that it's not enough to be transmissive of light. And also the felting onto the 3D printed surface isn't working quite how I had hoped it would work. So I don't know, like besides this one looks like a proto troll doll, right? Besides making my own troll doll, I'm like a little bit out of inspiration on this. This one looks like this on the top, like a little bit of a cheese grater situation. And these are all, the little shapes are meant to go on top of this prefabbed component in Tinkercad, which is called the glow circuit assembly, which is just it's a holder for a coin cell battery, and then an LED goes in it. Here's one with chicken legs, and that one has a battery in it. So when I put the LED over the battery, the 3D printing like holds it in place, and you can see that it's lit up. So that's the idea with these two, is that they would fit over top of the glow assembly and, you know, make some kind of, make some kind of illuminated little sculpture. But I don't know, they're not doing what I want with the felting. So I don't know. Can you even see that? So that's what's on my schedule for next week, is like something with 3D printing and needle felting. But I'm really, I'm in the, like, I'm either about to have a breakthrough or I'm about to switch projects. I just don't know if it's valuable the way I thought it might be. As like I don't know. I made like a light bulb shape. Of course, it broke. I made a light bulb shape in Tinkercad with the diamond mesh like shape generator, and like punched it through this sphere, which made this really cool like lattice shape. And then I was hoping I could like felt over this, but it's not, based on my preliminary experiments, it's not going to work. It's not going to work like that. So that sucks. Silva Smith, take your caps lock off. There's no need to yell. Is it your workplace in home or office? I work out of my home. Yes, this is my home studio in Brooklyn, New York. Have you tried thin paper mache as a diffuser? Oh, that's a good suggestion. I have not. It's just, I'm a little frustrated that like, because my goal is to experiment with different ways of diffusing light. I just wanted an experiment with felting to work this week, you know? But yes, paper mache is a good idea. I love paper mache, actually. Yeah, because I'm just trying to think of cool ways to incorporate crafts with electronics and 3D printing, right? Like just fun crossovers that give you a reason to try the technology, even if you're only interested in the craft. Does that make sense? Yeah. IoT projects on Arduino. What about them? I did an Internet of Things class on in the Instructables website, instructables.com/classes. And it is like, it's an intermediate Arduino class that it's full of Internet of Things projects or lessons that teach you how to interpret data you get from the internet, send data to the internet, and then combine those two inputs and outputs using an ESP8266 Arduino-based microcontroller. So you should check that out if you want to see some. And then from there, I link like a bunch of IoT projects, like my YouTube subscriber counter and my other social tracker. And then I also made a weather display and Valentine's Day telepresence project with the Internet of Things, with the ESP8266. So you can check those out on my Instructables profile. Refreshing to see something other than ping pong balls being used for diffusers. On what? Hot melt glue. Yeah, I get to see one of the only things that hot glue is good for. Engineering versus design. What's your pick? Don't you need both to make anything actually go? I'm such a one-woman band or one-woman show. Like, I definitely feel the need to do both. Although I didn't go to school for engineering. I went to school for design, and get a little bit of imposter syndrome when people call me an engineer, because I'm definitely not. But by education or by profession, much more of a designer, and even then, like an experienced designer, right? Where like I design a lesson that communicate, and then the subject of the lesson, I suppose, have domain knowledge in that. But so I gotta say, I teach in a design program. So I'm gonna pick design for your question, but you need both in order to actually accomplish any projects of merit, in my opinion. Are you going to make more solar projects? Meh. Do you have any requests or suggestions? I also did a solar class on Instructables that is brings you through. There's like 2 solar like thermal energy projects. There's a solar engraving project and a trash bag solar balloon project, and then a couple solar panel projects. One is a cell phone like backup battery that charges over solar, kind of like you can make your own solar charging backpack, for instance, with that tutorial. And then the second solar panel project is like a microcontroller data logging project where it powers an ESP8266 microcontroller and has a battery. So if you have a request or suggestion, I might be able to do another solar project. I definitely have solar supplies. I'm just fresh out of solar ideas. It is almost solar time though, isn't it? I think it could be cool to have like now that I'm in my new place, I have like a tiny bit of outdoor space. There's like a tiny little weird roof area that I could put like an herb planter box or something. And I do love cooking. So I've had a hydroponic garden before with herbs, and you're always having to check the pH every single day. And I'd hate to have to like lean out the window. So I guess if I got another herb garden set up, I'd probably put in solar powered Internet of Things, like humidity watering sensor in the box to like make sure I was taking good care of my plants. Charles says, using 3D printing and felting. Ping pong seems to be the go-to diffuser. Yeah, I know. And like felt is an okay diffuser, but you have to felt right around the LED itself. So maybe that's the angle I take, is like you print out something like this that has feet. By the way, Paige Russell designed these feet. It's supposed to go with the egg like that. Maybe I just design a couple more feet and then the fluff is here. And like I also designed a flower that I haven't printed yet that's like green up to here, and then I put like a little thing on top to be the actual flower. ThingSpeak Web is best for Arduino IoT projects. Yeah, it could be cool. I've never used it before. Thanks, son of the cakes. You're very sweet. That's very nice of you to say. Transparency paper sanded down with fine grit sandpaper. Oh yeah, like acetate sheets roughed up with a little sandpaper. Yeah, that's a good idea. Now you want to see the 3D printed flower, huh, Nico? Yeah, okay, I'll make it. I'm just It just might not be my felting project. That's the thing. I'm like, okay, do you ever have that happen to you where you're like wanting to make something and instead of you make everything but that thing and you have to like shelve them and because what you're trying to make is still not made yet? So frustrating. But if you take good notes, then those things can always be waiting for you. So yes, after this live stream is over, I will be printing out. I've got the green filament already loaded up in here, and I will print out the flower base. And then I'm going to experiment with different tops that have a little bit of fluff in them. That's my like last hope on the felting project. Solar project, keep the birds off the herb garden. Yeah, birds aren't that big of a problem here. Maybe bugs. Programming language do you, but without Arduino language? What programming languages do I know that aren't Arduino, maybe you're asking? I know a little bit of PHP. I'm really solid in HTML and CSS, which I know aren't programming languages, but I'm taking a broad interpretation of your question. I have done a little bit of Python. Python's really easy to learn. So you can use it on microcontrollers these days. That wasn't the case back in my day, but Python's cool. I first learned, the very first computer programming language I ever learned was BASIC. And I was in high school and we had to write like a snake game as our final project. And then I used BASIC some more on my very first microcontroller projects. We used BASIC on the PIC chip, which was just a terrible experience, especially compared to Arduino. But do I have any experience with CNC routing? A little bit. So my students at SVA, I teach in this program called Products of Design, a grad product design program. They have a ShopBot, and there's also a ShopBot at NYC Resistor, which is the hackerspace that I'm a member of. And so I have a little bit of experience. I have participated in projects where there were ShopBot parts. I'm thinking specifically of the mini golf hole that I designed, I helped design with my friends at NYC Resistor, and we created like a giant a mini golf hole obstacle that looked like a human cell. And so the edges of it were all like CNC plywood, and the little gate where you shut the ball out was a double-sided microscope that was cut on the CNC router and then painted. So I wouldn't say I'm at that level where like I can't walk into the space and operate the shop up by myself, but I have video documentation that shows me each step of the way, and I would just feel a lot better if there were a person there with me guiding me. But I definitely have used the shop up before, just never solo. So I guess you would say I have my CNC learner's permit, right? Isn't that wait, is that the Hackerspace part of the CCC Chaos Computer Club? I think that many members go to the Chaos Computer Congress or whatever it's called. But I don't think we're directly affiliated. I think a lot of us cut our teeth on BASIC. I know it sucks, right? But I guess it's not as bad as Fortran, which I never used. It is one of these programming languages that has line numbers hard-coded. So it's like, go to line 13. And if you want to put anything in between, you have to like change all of those other line numbers that refer. Gross. You think semicolons are gross? Well, line numbers hard-coded are gross, okay? Okay, so the other project that I'm working on, I'm gonna make a new leather wallet for my boyfriend. I made him one last summer when his wallet broke, but, finally gave up the ghost. It was just like too worn to use anymore. And you can see, I didn't make a tutorial about this wallet because it was the first leather thing I ever made. And so I didn't document it. And also it was a gift. So it's just like something I was experimenting with and I didn't have very much confidence in. So I didn't write a tutorial about it. But you can see the wallet. It is featured in my solar engraving video, where I solar engrave wood and I solar engrave leather. And the leather thing that I solar engrave is his wallet. And oh, thank you so much for saying you just came across my channel a couple of days ago. Love your content so much. Awesome. Thank you. So I got some more leather because he just lost his wallet and is getting all the things replaced. And so I can make, this is the same kind of leather. It's just this, I don't remember how thick it is. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember how thick it is. Tanned leather. And I'll just make another one, and it'll be the second leather thing. That's not true. I've made some leather things in between. It'll be the second wallet I've ever made. And I was thinking I'd make it into a video and a project because why not? It was pretty easy to make. I learned all of the leatherworking techniques from my former colleague Michaela's leatherworking class on Instructables. By the way, yeah, it's not just tech classes on that site. Like a whole bunch of really talented people wrote really great guides about everything from how to cook the perfect steak to how to get started in leatherworking. So I learned everything I knew from Michaela's class and really enjoyed taking a little foray into leather. My neighbors downstairs didn't like it so much, but we've moved since then, and now I live above a business. So a business that isn't open in the evening. So I could probably get away with a little pounding and nobody would mind so much. Okay, well, so I think that's all of the things on my agenda. I don't think I had anything else on my agenda to discuss with you or talk to you. And I was hoping to go 45 minutes or a little over if there were some questions. So if you guys have questions, please put them up in the chat and I'll spend the next couple of minutes answering your questions before I sign off. Sound good? There's a reason why the line numbers were there. When the code was printed on punch card, it helped them put them back in the same order when you accidentally dropped the box of cards. Oh God, that sounds like such a nightmare. Have you heard of the TV Be Gone Arduino project? I have built several TV Be Gones, including a TV Be Gone jacket with a conductive thread zipper switch. And those use the AT-Tiny 85 chip, which is technically an Arduino. No, you mean like TV Be Gone on an Arduino. Yes, and I have compiled it. Yeah, I have. That's cool. That's a cool thing to build. Where do you get the parts for your projects? Well, I make things in all different domains, so it depends. I get a lot of stuff from Amazon, honestly, but I also like some specialty retailers for certain stuff. Like I really like RioGrande.com for jewelry supplies. And not only because they have everything, they're like the DigiKey of jewelry supplies and jewelry findings, but they also make a lot of their own jewelry findings, and their entire facility in New Mexico is solar powered. So like there's certain vendors that I really would prefer and have brand loyalty to. But I don't know, like it depends. It depends on what I'm making. Did you see the Evan and Caitlin collab with I Like to Make Stuff where they made the leather ping pong net? Yes, I have. It's excellent. Awesome. Very fun. Is there a point when you go, I feel I know enough about this to make a tutorial? And when do you feel that is? That's a really good question, Charles. If I felt like learning how to make the leather wallet was like a valuable experience to share as my first time, like here's what my first time doing this was like, I would have shared it. But that's not the angle I wanted on that project, because it's such a simple project. I like to be able to speak with some amount of authority, like you're saying. And when do you know if you have that authority? Well, it definitely waxes and wanes. And I know that like Charles knows that we all struggle with like self-confidence issues. And so like developing that, like, I think I know, like that feeling, I might have that feeling at 11 a.m. I could totally write a tutorial about this. And then at 6 p.m. be like, I don't think I know enough about this to write a tutorial about it. And so it depends. And, you know, you ride the wave. So like when I feel confident, I'll write a script. Right? Because then if all I have to do is read a script, I feel confident that my former self did a good job writing this script. Does that make sense? If I'm not feeling self-confident, it's not a good time for me to write. So like, when is that point? I guess for me, Charles, like I don't have to do something a lot to feel like I can explain it. That's one of my superpowers, is to be able to immediately turn an experience around. And especially if being a beginner is fresh in your mind, that makes you even better at explaining it to new people, because you know what the gotchas are and you know what the common like misconceptions are. And I learned this, I get a refresher, and I love this every single time I teach this class at SVA in the fall semester, where we do learn Arduino as one of the things we cover. I get a huge benefit of seeing these like enthusiastic novices learn Arduino for the first time once a year. I get a refresher on like what questions people ask when you try to explain to them PWM or whatever. So I would say, Charles, feel a lot less competent in a skill before I feel like I can write a tutorial about it than you might think. Yeah. Do a video of your lab workstation tour. Well, like it's my whole studio. I do have a studio tour as one of my Patreon goals. So if I meet if I get a couple more patrons on my Patreon, I do have a goal set up there that I will release a studio tour video and even release it early on Patreon. But yeah, I just, we just moved in over the winter, and I'm a bit of I need a lot of time to nest. And so I've already moved the furniture in my studio once. I think I'm getting there, but like I want to make a studio tour when I feel like it's going to stay in its current layout for a while and it doesn't have any like big drawbacks. Especially like the main reason we wanted the space to be in the layout it was before was so that we could cut down those big sheets of plywood. And once we cut down the last sheet of plywood, I'm like, that's it. I'm moving my furniture. I need the light over here and the photo table over here. And so it's changed around. Gonzalo asks, do you always build wood projects? I hardly ever build wood projects. I'm actually allergic to sawdust. I hate it. It makes me sneeze like crazy. And it makes a huge mess. So I hardly ever make wood projects. We're making this wood storage project now because we need the storage. And I like the idea that I can build wood projects. And I don't like hate the entire process. It's just, it's not my bread and butter, right? But do I really have a bread and butter? I don't know. Great point, rewriting from a newbie's perspective. Thanks. Yeah. Cool. Well, do you guys have any more questions? Thank you so much for joining me on my first live stream. I know, like I say, my first live stream when I did run a wearable electronics show on Adafruit for more than 3 years weekly as a live stream, but I've never done a live stream on my channel. So, well, that's not true either, but like, that's just me, a solo live stream about me and my projects and this studio update. So let me know what you think of this format. If you'd prefer I do a monthly live stream where I hang out with you guys versus a monthly studio vlog where I let you know what I'm up to. I can't promise to stick to the same format every single month, but I do take your opinion into some amount of consideration. Yeah. Maybe not having a bread and butter is your bread and butter. Well, that's definitely true. Yeah, of course. My bread and butter is tutorial making. And like, I'm handy with the digital camera these days, both video and still, and photo editing and video. I love video editing. That's like the invisible part of what I do, right? Like if you try to make tutorials, you quickly learn how hard it is to edit video, not only in general, but of yourself. So the invisible work is my bread and butter, the tutorial making itself. Well, it's been so nice to see so many friends in the chat. Thank you guys for showing up and keeping it clean in the chat room. I really appreciate you guys all looking out, and for all of you guys who showed up and hung out with me today live. That's also great. If you're watching this recorded, also welcome. Maybe you'll catch the next one. And thank you for the Greek tutorials, and helps me out because I have dyslexia. I'm a visual learner. Hey, I'm dyslexic too, and so I try to make content that that explains things in multiple ways, with words, with pictures, and with video, so that if one of those different like vectors doesn't really jive, you can like compare the other two. At least that's what works for me. Okay, thanks guys. I'm gonna sign off now so that you don't get tired of me. You want to, leave them wanting more. So let me know your thoughts on the live stream versus the vlog format for the monthly studio update. And I really look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Bye.